the key of a song is all the notes that are used in it, and the scale is all those notes played in order. But what makes up a scale? Why the particular notes in that scale? Well, there are a lot of things, the way a piano is built, the way a guitar is built, the way you finger guitar chords, or why there are black and white keys on a piano. That stuff is mechanical. That is all designed to make playing music either possible or easier. But the notes in a scale, that is natural. If you play a C note, the notes in this scale of C major, in the key of C major, are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And that's where the confusion about does a scale use 7 notes or 8? In fact, some of them use totally different numbers, but the C major scale begins on C, and technically we can end it on C, which makes it 8 notes, and they're all just those letters. And the reason that it starts with C instead of A goes back in history, and if you really care, we can look that up, but it won't help you with music theory. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now, if you play a C note on any instrument, just play a C, you will hear primarily a C. You will also hear G. It will occur naturally in what are called overtones. Music is made of waves that add up like that. If you play a C note, then the strings in your piano or on your guitar, the air coming out of a flute, it makes waves, and those waves continue, and as those waves continue, they pile up and they interfere with each other and do interesting things. And if you play just a C on the piano or on the guitar, you will hear mostly C. You will also hear G, and then you will also hear E. So the notes C, E, and G work together naturally. They are harmonious. And we're not going to use the words happy and sad and assign emotional value to chords because of how they sound to chords or keys or chord progressions. Chord progressions, maybe. But minor keys are not sad. That's not just oversimplification. It's just wrong. Some of the most triumphant and powerful music ever written was done in minor keys, and the 2 saddest songs I've ever written are in C major. So what people really mean when they're talking about happy and sad is harmonious and discordant. If you play on a piano, and I'll be talking a lot about a piano because on a piano, everything is laid out in a line. It's easy to see what the chords are, where an octave starts and begins, to talk about the difference between the white notes and the black notes, and C, flats and sharps, things like that. Piano is the easiest instrument to use for learning music theory. So, on a piano, if you play a C and a G, they just sound good together. If you play a C and a C sharp, it sounds terrible out of context. If you just play those 2 notes, the human ear, the human mind really, because just like you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain, you don't hear with your ears, you hear with your brain. And your brain is hardwired to enjoy the harmonious sounds of the wavelengths of a C note and the wavelengths of a G note piled on top of each other. And in fact, if you pile an E in there, it's still harmonious. So those 3 that occur in nature are harmonious. But now you can make a chord just shift that E to an E flat. And that E flat, by being a half step or semitone, and we'll get into that later, away from the harmonious E, will be slightly discordant. But it's only slightly discordant, and yet your ear will hear a difference. You may not know what it means, but if someone plays a C major chord and then a C minor chord, you will hear some difference. And one will feel better and one will feel less good. Harmonious and discordant. So those chords, a major chord, for instance, C major is C, E, and G, is made up of 3 notes that occur together naturally. And to get into where all the other notes come from is going to get into the weeds a little bit. So for now, there's some very basic, what is a key, what is a chord, and what is a major chord and why. And we'll start picking apart all those other questions, and I want to do them in tiny little bite-sized bits because this stuff is very geeky and scientific, but if you understand the science, not to any ridiculous degree, but if you understand essentially what harmony and discord are, then you'll understand what an interval is, the distance between 2 notes, and why that interval is music. And then you'll understand how to create a G with a C in the bass dominant 7/9 chord or something like that. You'll be able to just sit down at a piano and figure out these are the notes that belong there. Or when you see it in a jazz or classical score, you'll understand what that means too. So we'll be spending a little bit of time on each concept. I'm going to try to keep these focused and not ramble too much. So watch for so many more videos in the Common Sense Music Theory series. And I'm not going to enjoy saying theory series. This is Joel D. Canfield.